When he told me I was going to be doubling Han Solo himself, I just... Anything in your hand, weapon-wise, you feel pretty badass anyway. But when the thing's on fire and
you're swinging it around and
wielding it,
yeah.
it was absolutely insane.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Screen Rant Stuntman React. We've got a brilliant episode coming up for you today and we're joined by stuntman Jason Curl. Hello Jason.
Hello there.
We've worked with Jason lots over the years on some of our projects on YouTube. We did a video with Watch Dogs, League of Legends, Cable, Chronicles of Hope, and we love working with Jace. Jace, tell us a little bit about your career in stunts.
Yeah, I've been a stunt performer since 2012. I actually qualified the same time as George did. Yeah, we actually had the same one. I've been, over that time, fortunate enough to be able to work on quite a few decent things. Game of Thrones, a few Marvel things, including Thor Dark World was actually my first job. That was a fun one. So I've been very fortunate enough to be able to work on quite a few decent things.
Okay, brilliant, Jace. Well, let's get straight into the first clip. So the first clip we're looking at today is from Solo, a Star Wars story. And Jace, I understand you were one of the doubles for Han Solo himself, played by Alden Ehrenreich in this film.
With a production this big, it usually requires more than one double just to, keep the time constraints. There are usually multiple units filming sequences and bits and pieces. So I was predominantly the double for this sequence.
And the sequence we're looking at is the kind of big train heist sequence of the film, which is pretty much like the biggest action sequence within the film. It's kind of like about midway through, and it's like 10 minutes long of this, this huge sequence. Yeah,
and it's an insane sequence, and this was filmed completely in the studio, obviously not on a real train flying through the Alps or anything.
Right, okay.
The really cool thing about this sequence is the actual train was an entire section suspended in the sky, and the entire thing could rotate 180 degrees onto its side and move about. So on the sequence you see it's doubled up, you've got like one half at the top, one half at the bottom, and it moves around. So that entire bit there was completely movable. So when you see it turn and twist, the performers on it would have to be suspended on it at all times. So
when it's turning here, it actually is physically turning.
It's physically turning.
Right, okay.
Yes, yeah.
And then obviously there's quite a few other performers involved in the sequence as well. Mm-hmm. So were you guys having to kind of like train together to get that balance and stuff, or were you kind of doing individual stunts at individual times? Or were you...
It all pretty much happens all at the same time, and because of the physicality of the entire thing moving, there's not really much rehearsal to go by. It's literally the whole rig's going to twist and you guys are going to potentially fall off, so make sure you grab hold of something. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and when I got this call for the job, I literally had to catch my phone because I was like, if this is that, I just wanted to work on the film, like, because I love it. And then when he told me I was going to be doubling Han Solo himself, I just...
Yeah, well, God, special moment,
yeah, mind blown. And it was nuts. Wearing the costumes and bits and pieces, and he has a really nice like homage vest, doesn't he? The white vest he wears as well. Great, obviously, Alden's got a full set of hair, which obviously I don't. But obviously with wigs and movie magic, I made a pretty decent double. What was actually very interesting is because of these productions, they actually have full face masks made of the actors.
Right, okay.
So some points I had to wear the full face mask, which is entire like hood.
So the face of
Alden. It was quite odd because it'd go straight over. I wear the goggles, which because of that means I can't actually see. The mask means I can't really hear. You've got wind machines going. The most difficult thing was making sure I got Han's poses correct, using his blaster and putting it back in the pockets and bits and pieces. Okay. So when you can't see, hear or feel anything.
Yeah.
I'm on it!
For this sequence, what they'd end up doing is literally getting that rig while I'm on top of the train rig.
Yeah.
And then literally they just flew it at me full speed, and I had to literally just jump and grab it and hope that I didn't go anywhere else. And it wasn't gentle. It did. Yeah, I did get smashed up a few times. But
well, it feels very convincing. It feels like two physical things coming together, and you're actually jumping from one to the other. So
yeah, it felt really convincing to me. Yeah, definitely, because I felt it.
Okay, so now we're looking at Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 9, Beyond the Wall it's called. And this is where the heroes have been kind of surrounded on the ice by the Whites, and they're about to get slaughtered. So Jay, tell us a bit more about what you did in this one.
I was fortunate enough on this to double the character Beric Dondarrion, played by Richard Dormer, who's an absolutely amazing guy. Predominantly for that episode, anytime you see a flaming sword being flung around and it's not Richard's face, that would be me.
The flaming sword is like one of the coolest things ever.
It's basically the medieval equivalent of a lightsaber.
Lightsaber, exactly.
Yeah.
So tell us about like, because obviously, yeah, is that an effect or is it actually on
No,
fire?
it's actually a light. I'd have to dip it into the solution of, I believe it was part petrol and part something else. And then, yeah, it'd be literally like everyone ready. And then because of the sword was the thing, it was literally everyone had to wait until I was ready. Which is nice. But it's like, okay, ready. They'd even go action, and we was all going, and then it's literally sword lit, and then go. And then once the sword goes up, it is just an insane feeling having that in your hand.
Yeah.
It's just anything in your hand, like, weapon-wise, you feel pretty badass anyway. But when the thing's on fire and
you're swinging it around
you're wielding
somebody,
it, it was absolutely insane. Think about how I held the sword differently as well. I've done a lot of sword work in my time, but there are certain things, you know, for example, that I couldn't do. So with the flaming sword, you can't do a single straight thrust, because what will happen is the flame stays there, your hand there, and then you're on fire.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of end up working with the sword a little bit more. If I swung it too fast, the sword would put itself out. Too slow, it looks crap. It took a bit of effort to get working with it and making sure, as it's always moving, it's always staying lit and keeping everything looking nice and flowing, and you know, making sure it looks good for this final result.
When your character, he runs his sword through one of the whites, and it kind of sets him on fire.
Yes.
Was that a visual effects thing, or did they do that?
That was practical. We literally just gelled up and put all the alcohol and stuff on the performer, and then they ran up to me and I shanked them. See,
There's Jason. Look, Jason.
so that was, see, sometimes I wasn't actually being shot on, but then you still needed the light from the sword.
Right, okay.
So if you're not being used, you're not going to be busting yourself out pulling all the moves. So annoyingly, obviously the behind the scenes guys caught me in a point where I was actually told not to do anything. They said, just move the sword around and make sure it's providing the light for the other actors' faces.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I'm standing there basically igniting each person that comes past me. So annoyingly, yeah, the behind the scenes stuff makes me look terrible because, yeah, it's not showing my good stuff. Again, actually here in the background, because again, being a performer, you try and help out anyone around you, including the props team. So anytime it's like, okay, cut, I'd hold the sword out and make sure, you know, they knew where I was, that sort of thing.
I have the power.
Exactly.
We really hope you enjoyed this week's show, guys. We want to say a huge thank you to Jason for coming in.
Thank you.
And make sure you join us next week because Jason will be returning to talk about his work on Tenet and much more.